What's up, everyone? It's Will ND from Young Guns along with my partner in crime, Jackson, and I'm here with Dannyology. Danny, this
How
has
you guys doing?
become a fun college basketball season, man. I've been hooked on it for a while now. So, one thing that's going on, you're obviously a West Virginia and a Marshall guy. West Virginia hasn't had the season that fans have hoped. Do you think that Bob Huggins is still the guy, and how long do you think that the athletic department is going to keep him as the guy in Morgantown to coach the team?
Yeah, it's an interesting question because not only are the fans, split on whether they think Bob Huggins should stay or not, but we also just got a new athletic director this year. So, still, his first year, so we'll have to see how he feels about Bob Huggins. But I honestly think we were projected to finish ninth in the Big 12. That's where we're sitting at right now. And it's just a tough league, man. It's just there's no easy games in the Big 12, and I honestly think that Bob Huggins should be our guy till he wants to be. That's just my opinion. I think he's the guy. There's been a lot of talk about between like post game interviews and stuff about players just kind of calling out other players, which could you know could see that as an issue, but I think that they're together. They just gotta play more together. Is all. I don't think it's a Bob Huggins thing while we're losing.
Yeah. So yesterday, Houston is not number one anymore because of the upset loss to Temple, and now it's been the first time since February 20th, 2000, that Temple has upset the number one team in all of college basketball. What was your reaction to Houston going down against Temple? Does,
Well,
does it
first
help Temple in any way?
I mean, I don't see Temple anyway of them making the tournament or anything like that. I mean, unless they can somehow pull off a AAC conference tournament win, but I don't really see that happening either. But first off, I didn't think Houston should have been the number one team to begin with. Yeah, I had them sitting at like 3, 4, 5 in that range of the week. I just don't think they played the level of competition that these other top teams that played. I think a lot of their AP poll ranking was based on a lot of preseason hype and preseason bias that they just want to stick by, and the AP poll wants to be right. So they see Houston as, they put them over Purdue as like a tiebreaker because of the preseason bias and stuff like that, in my opinion. But yeah, it is shocking. I mean, even though I don't think that they were the number one team, they're still one of the top teams in the country, and they have championship potential and all that. So it's still very shocking, especially come that loss at home.
Right. So what's your take on Gonzaga? Because as of last Thursday, their 75 home game winning streak, which was the longest active winning streak in college basketball, went down as they lost to Loyola Marymount. And then on Saturday, they had a very sloppy win against Pacific. How long do you think Gonzaga is going to last in March Madness this year? Or is it too early to say?
I think it just depends on the matchups. I don't think they're going to get past the Sweet 16 unless they get a really lucky draw and maybe can sneak into the Elite Eight. But I just don't see that happen. I think they're out second round or Sweet 16, if I had to say, and they just haven't looked as good as former Gonzaga teams that we've seen the past decade or so. Like they really all season long, they just haven't looked like that. And I will say Loyola Marymount is actually a pretty decent team this year, though. But yeah, Gonzaga just doesn't look as good as past teams, really.
Mm-hmm.
So now that Gonzaga lost, winning streak is gone. Auburn now has the longest active winning streak in college basketball, as they have a 28 home game winning streak.
Yeah.
What's your take on Auburn doing very well? And matter of fact, what's your take on Alabama and Auburn doing very well in college basketball over the last few years or so?
Yeah, that's crazy. The jungle, they call it. That's a tough place to play. Man, they get wild there. And, Bruce Pearl is always this bright red in there. And I don't know, man. I got a video coming out soon. It's going to be titled like Alabama is a basketball school. Like that's going to be the title. Like I think Alabama. I'm glad you brought them up too because I think they have the best freshman class this season. Like they have an insane freshman class, and it's really their freshmen along with like Mark Sears and that's carrying this team. So I think it's crazy that I think Nate Oates is doing an amazing job. I think he's actually maybe a sleeper pick for the Texas job if he wants it. But like, yeah, Nate Oates, he's doing a great job there, and I like he's developing those freshmen. Like you see teams like Kentucky in the SEC, they have a ton of top freshmen. They're not really developing that well. Carson Wallace is doing good, but other than that, like Alabama, these aren't 5-star guys, and they're developing them really well. So.
Mm-hmm. So you're also a Marshall fan. So what do you think about Marshall basketball? Do you think that they can win the Sun Belt this year? And do you think that they can maybe win a game or two in the tournament?
Oh yeah. I think they'll win the Sun Belt regular season. It's just hopefully they don't get upset in the conference tournament. That's the only thing I'm worried about because they have shown they can lose to some not so great teams in their conference. So I worry about that. I don't know if we'll get a bid if we don't win the Sun Belt Conference Championship because it's probably a 1-bid league, and that's probably going to go to the tournament champions. So I worry about that. If we can get in, then I'm pretty confident that depending on a matchup, I'd definitely be on the lookout for all the people looking there for maybe an upset in their bracket, to pick. Definitely look out for this Marshall team. We got Tavion Kinley, averages 25 and 5. He's an NBA guy. And we have a point guard, Camden Kerfman. Dude can shoot from NBA range and beyond. He's awesome to watch. It's a really, really fun team to watch. It almost reminds me, I kind of compare it as like the mid-major Kansas State because they're really fun to watch and they got a lot of athletic guys that can, they throw a lot of alley-oops and stuff like that. So it's really cool. But yeah, Kensley, he's definitely an NBA guy. Our coach Dan D'Antoni, his brother coached in the NBA for a long time. He's definitely an NBA guy. He could definitely help lead us to an upset in March, given a right matchup.
So far this year, what are the top 10 conferences in your opinion this year?
The top 10 conferences. Well, I'm a West Virginia guy. I've seen the Big 12 in and out this season. Undoubtedly, best conference in the league, in the country, easily. Second best conference. It's also pretty easy for me. I've said it pretty much most of the year that the SEC is the second best conference. I think Alabama, Auburn, Tennessee have all been really good this year, and specifically Alabama has been dominating a lot of teams. And I just don't think that the SEC doesn't have the the depth that the Big 12 has. So as far as top to bottom in the conference, the third one is interesting. I think it's between two, either the Big 10 or the Big East. The only thing about the Big 10 is the Big 10, everybody's just kind of beating everyone. But I think top to bottom, like I said, for the Big 12, it's a lot better than the Big East. So I'd probably go Big 10 number 3, especially because Purdue is playing so great. And in all that chaos in that league, Purdue's kind of prevailed through that and has only one loss on the season. So I definitely go Big 10 number 3, and then Big East would fall right behind them. I'm a big fan of Marquette and Xavier this year. I've been very vocal on my channel about UConn, and they're on the low right now, but I still think they have a ton of potential. Creighton has been very disappointing there this season, but I still think the Big East I'd probably put number 4. And now next is when you get in kind of into an interesting topic where do you have the ACC or do you start looking at some mid-major conferences
The All Clemson Conference?
Yeah. So Yeah, how about Clemson? They're a big surprise this year. They've been playing great, man. But yeah, I would probably still go the ACC, but then after that, I think probably the Mountain West might be better than the Pac-12. Honestly, like Mountain West and the West Coast Conference, like those three West conferences there in the West Coast are kind of getting close. Like I don't think the West Coast Conference is too far behind the Pac-12. If it wasn't for Arizona and UCLA, West Coast Conference probably be past them. But I definitely go Mountain West over the Pac-12. I think top to bottom, it's much better of a conference. You know, um, yeah, I really like the Mountain West. It's hard for me to really give an order, but I'd go ACC at 5 after those 4 I mentioned earlier. Number 6, maybe the Mountain West. I'd probably go Mountain West 6, and then you have the discussion really between the AAC or the Pac-12, and I think Arizona UCLA will carry Pac-12 to number 7 right there, and then I go AAC at 8. The next 2, have to think about this a little bit here, but yeah, the West Coast Conference, it's not just Gonzaga in that league. St. Mary's has been dominating, and there's Santa Clara, there's San Francisco, there's BYU, there's Loyola Marymount, who we mentioned earlier. Like that's actually not a bad conference. So I think they're definitely 9 or 10 on this list. And yeah, I'd probably give a shout out to possibly the 10th spot to maybe Conference USA there with FAU and UAB. I think those 2 teams are pretty solid, and that might be a 2-bid league. I think the A10 is down this year. The A10 is usually probably around 8 to 10 in the conference rankings, but they're really down this year. So I'd probably give it to Conference USA.
Yeah, someone that follows the A10 inside and out as a VCU student. It's been a non-conference. I'm like, okay, can anyone get a win? Can anyone get?
Yeah, the A10 is usually fun, but it's just down this year.
Mm-hmm. So what's with the Connecticut collapse? They've lost 5 of the last 7 games. What has been key to that? What do they need to do to get back up?
Man, it just seems like they can't win on the road for whatever reason. I don't know. Like it's interesting because they have such a deep team, and I'm kind of thinking like, could it possibly be a coaching thing? Because Dan Hurley, he got a lot of praise start of the year. He's got this really talented team, and it is a really talented team. So I don't know if maybe the team was overhyped, or maybe Dan Hurley's just not doing a great job coaching, especially on the road. There, so it's kind of interesting because you'll be watching the game, and Donovan Clingan will come in. He'll be real hot. He'll score a bunch of points, and then they'll take him out. And I know they got a star in Sonogo, but you got to play the dudes that are playing well. But yeah, I still think they can get on track. I talked about a lot earlier in the year. I thought UConn was my favorite to win the national championship, the way that they were looking early with wins over like Alabama and stuff. I still think that they can get back to that, but also Alabama has gotten a lot better since then. So I don't know if you can say UConn beat the number 2 team in the country. I think, Alabama's gotten a lot better since that loss to UConn. But yeah, I worry about the coaching in March now. Like it's starting to, with these losses stacking up, it's getting me more and more worried about picking UConn in March. For sure.
All right. So, what's your take on Texas? Are they going to be collapsing a little bit because they don't have Chris Beard now?
Yeah. Texas, they have a lot of good bigs, and I think the main thing people talk about usually with Texas is Marcus Carr and Tyrese Hunter, but really once we got into league play, Tyrese Hunter hasn't really been playing that well, and it's really the bigs, and it's not just like Timmy Allen. It's Dylan Dessou and Christian Bishop. Those two guys can catch it in the high post there, shoot it from the elbow, and drain it. And Christian Bishop is an insane athlete. Also, small forward Dylan Mitchell, who's a freshman, also another insane athlete. And credit to Marcus Carr and Hunter for the playmaking and getting them the ball in the high post and lobbing it up to him. But yeah, they have a really solid team and a lot of good forwards and depth at the forward position. I think Rodney Terry, he's had coaching experience. I think Texas goes pretty far, but without Chris Beard, I don't see them, getting Final Four far.
What do you think about Villanova's struggles this year? I thought Kyle Neptune was a great hire because of the job that he did at Fordham. Like, Fordham was a terrible A-10 team, and now they're a mediocre A-10 team. They're able to make a big jump. I thought he would be able to fill in to Jay Wright and at least have them contending in the Big East, but it's not looking like that this year. What do you think's gone wrong with the Wildcats, besides the Justin Moore injury?
Yeah, I think the Justin Moore injury actually kind of plays into a lot of why, because the guard play just isn't there. And they do have, a lot of great forwards on that team, and Cam Whitmore, the freshman, has been playing good and stuff. So they have a lot of talent on the team. So that makes you think, like, especially with Jay Wright retiring, that it's got to be the coaching, and I think maybe a little bit, but I think we still got to give it another year to see if he's the guy or not there at Villanova. But yeah, I was not expecting that downfall at all. It's they might be the most disappointing team this year for sure, because they got guys on that team, Caleb Daniels and them boys. And they've shown, they've gotten wins. Then they beat Oklahoma this year, and they beat somebody in the Big East that they weren't supposed to. After the season they were having, like, they definitely have the potential to do so. So it's hard not to think it's coaching there.
So, what's your take on the Big 12 SEC Challenge this week? What are the things to look forward to from the Big 12 SEC Challenge? That's going to be big, especially your boys, West Virginia, playing Auburn. Are they going to pull off the upset over Auburn?
I actually think so. It's a sold out game. I'm probably going to be out of the game.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's going to be a fun one. And I honestly don't think Auburn is that great or away from home. I definitely think that they are prone to be upset. We've seen on a neutral site court, they lost to Memphis this year. Yeah, and I kind of like the matchups here. Looking at the lineups, because they have a really good defensive front court, maybe one of the best in the country. With Johnny Broom, he gets about 3 blocks a game. So I worry about that a little bit, but we have a lot of size there, and I think the guards, we have a lot of good guards and a deep depth when it comes to guard play. Like, we'll play about 5 guards a game, and I definitely think that they can get out in transition, especially with the home crowd behind them, and put up some points.
So Purdue, even though they're number one in the nation, they're back to being number one. And we see Tennessee in the top 10. Now, those two teams have a history of looking good in the regular season, especially in the last few years. They look really good in the regular season, but then they come up short in March Madness. Are we going to see the same thing yet, or is it too early to say this year?
Oh yeah, all year I've been thinking, like, Purdue's gonna blow it in the tournament again. I just have a gut feeling that they're gonna lose in the Elite Eight. Like, I feel like they're gonna make it to about the Elite Eight and then lose. It's just a feeling I have, and I'm probably gonna stick to it all the way to March. Honestly, like, I just don't think, like they were unable to beat St. Peter's last year to make the Elite Eight with Jaden Ivey, Travion Williams, and them boys. Like I just don't know with these freshman guards, and Braden Smith has been awesome. Maybe top 10, 15 freshmen in the country for sure. But I just know 2 freshman guards starting. I don't trust it in March, especially not at Purdue. So I definitely see a collapse coming around the Elite Eight. But I think they'll get that far. I think they will.
Same thing with Tennessee.
Oh yeah, Tennessee. Well, Tennessee is interesting because they've been playing really good this year, and they actually do have really good guard play.
Right.
And it's weird with Tennessee because they don't really have any good scoring big men, but they play really good defense against other teams' star big men. Like they played Arizona on the road pretty close against maybe the best front court in the country there at Arizona, and they play really good defense on them. So I think the weird thing about Tennessee is it's all going to come down can Vescovi and Zakai Ziegler and all these guys, are they going to be able to shoot the ball? Because if they come out cold one night, I think that could be their season.
Yeah, well, it's going to be a fantastic game, Texas and Tennessee on Saturday. I mean, that's going to be fantastic. But it's Rick Barnes, has only made one Final Four in his career, and he's like the Marty Schottenheimer of college basketball. Can't quite get it done in March. He can quite get it done in the regular season, but not in March.
Yeah. Rick Barnes' return game. It's going to be fun.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't looked at all the matchups quite yet for the Big 12 SEC Challenge. But
Alabama, I think, is going to be playing somebody really good. It's going to be Oklahoma. Oh, right. That's not a football game. That's a basketball game. Yeah. Oklahoma's not good in football either. But in all seriousness, though, Baylor, Arkansas, Kansas State, Florida, Kansas, Kentucky. You knew that was coming.
Yeah.
That's like every year.
They had to match them up. Yeah, I mean, Baylor, Arkansas might be the best one there, really. That one or Tennessee, Texas better. Arkansas, Baylor probably the second best game there, but they're all going to be really good matchups. Like we said earlier, like those are my top 2 conferences in the country.
Okay.
It's going to tell a lot.
Oh, yeah. Well, we have Texas Tech, LSU, Iowa State, Missouri, TCU, Mississippi State, and Oklahoma State, Ole Miss.
Mm-hmm.
That'd be an interesting matchup. TCU, Mississippi State. TCU, they like to get out in transition, score a lot of fast break points. Mississippi State, they got a really good defense. So if that one's in Starkville, that'll be a good game.
Oh, it's gonna get. It may get ugly for TCU if it, because it's in Starkville.
Mm-hmm.
But we don't see Texas A&M in that because they're gonna play Vanderbilt and Georgia, South Carolina. Yeah, they got to sit at the not so cool kids table, play each other.
They didn't get an invite to the party.
Nope.
That's sad too.
But they will next year.
Georgia's been playing good, surprisingly.
Yeah, they've been good. Texas A&M, I've been pretty surprised by their conference record.
Yeah, because non-con they looked a little bit disappointing because they were on the bubble last year. A lot of people thought they might take the jump and make the tournament this year, but then they got in conference play, started turning up a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, they got smacked down by Colorado in November. Good Lord. Boise kind of made them know their place. Memphis just kind of beat them in a tight fashion. Wofford beat them.
Yeah.
Good Lord Almighty. So is there what is Texas A&M going to have to do to get in March?
Well, given that the SEC is, one of the best conferences, I think they'll get a lot of bids. But are they going to be fighting with bids over teams like Mississippi State and Missouri? Maybe. And I would probably I think that they could beat out Mississippi State for a bid if they can win that one head to head. And I think they'll have to get to probably, they'll have to at least win one or two games there in the SEC tournament. For sure. So maybe try to win two games in the SEC tournament to really secure their spot.
So the remaining home schedule for Auburn, they have Texas A&M this Wednesday. They got Georgia on February the 1st. They got Bama coming to their backyard on February 11th. They got Missouri coming over on Valentine's Day. February 22nd, they have Ole Miss coming to Auburn. And the last home game will be Tennessee on March 4th. Who is the most likely out of all those teams I just named to end that home winning streak for Auburn, and why?
Honestly, I'd probably have to go Tennessee. Like I think in a rivalry game, they have a good shot at Bama. And I also think Alabama's bigs are going to get locked up against Auburn, especially in the jungle. So I don't know though, because I could see Brandon Miller kind of taking over that game. I kind of feel like I feel more comfortable picking Tennessee over Alabama to win in Auburn, just because I feel like the fans are definitely going to show up. I mean, they'll show up for anyone there, but especially for Alabama, it's going to be another type of animal coming out of that jungle. But I probably go Tennessee. I think that they match up a lot better there with Auburn, and I think Auburn has some really good defensive bigs I keep mentioning, but Tennessee also plays really good defense against bigs. I think Vescovi and Ziegler there are a better guard duo than what Auburn has. I think Tennessee matches up a lot better with Auburn.
Do you think that College of Charleston, if they get like the right matchups, do you think they can make a run to the Sweet 16? Or do you think that they're kind of just flukes?
Yeah, I'm back and forth on Charleston because they beat Virginia Tech, but then look at what happened to Virginia Tech. So they haven't really played any. They lost to North Carolina by like 10 or so. Maybe given the right matchups, especially if they keep winning. If they win out, it's looking like they might get an 11 seed or maybe even a 10, which is kind of crazy to think about. But that could set them up a lot better, facing, I think they'd need some help. I don't think I see Sweet 16 for them at this point. I just don't think the talent's there. So right now, I have a hard time believing they can get 2 wins in March.
So for March Madness, when we're watching it, flipping it between CBS, TNT, and the True TV and TBS, who is the most likely Cinderella team, as I call it? Cinderella team.
Cinderella?
In March Madness. Yep.
Man. Well, I really like St. Mary's. I don't know if that's really a Cinderella. It depends on what seed they get by the end of the year, but I really like the way they play. I think they're a well-coached team, and if you're not prepared for their play style, they'll probably beat you. So that's why I think if St. Mary's can get 1 win and then they play the next team on only like a 2 days notice, the next team's not going to be as prepared for them. So I could definitely see, them picking up a couple of wins in March Madness. As for like a super low seed or a lower seed, so I have to think about who might be.
Is College of Charleston on that list?
I don't see them getting if they do somehow squeeze out a couple wins. I don't think I see them getting past the Sweet 16. But who knows? St. Peter's went to the Elite Eight last year. You never know about these
Yeah.
teams. These small schools, they come out of nowhere.
Well, St. Peter's probably had the magic of the singing mice in their corner, so there you go.
Yeah.
So that helped plenty,
Um,
especially against Kentucky.
Yeah. Some teams that I would look at as far as making like Elite Eight, Final Four runs that they'll be Power Six teams, but they'll be low seeds. I like Michigan State this year a lot. Honestly, like Tom Izzo, he's proven it in March time and time again, and they have a pretty solid team here, and they just lost to Indiana. They're trying to get Malik Hall back. That's a big part of their team. I could see Tyson Walker hitting a shot late in the game, uh, getting them maybe as far as the Elite Eight, possibly even the Final Four. Earlier in the year, I really liked Memphis as far as a low seed to maybe make a deep run. Um, Kendrick Davis, he's one of the best players in college basketball, and the entire offense kind of runs through him. But he's not their whole team. He definitely has some help on that squad, and he's not just a scorer. He's a really good facilitator. Like he averages about 6 assists a game or so, but when you watch him play, it seems like he has a lot more.
So yeah, that's gonna be fun. Wondering who's gonna make it. Michigan State, last time they made it to Final Four was 2019. So this looks like the year.
Yeah, they
I
got a
mean,
big
even
recruiting class coming in next year too. Michigan State.
even though they've been a little bit sloppy in the regular season this year, but they'll probably pick it back up.
Yeah.
So we have a buddy that's an Ohio State fan, and he's not happy with Chris Holtman right now. So do you think that they can turn around this? I know they went on that long losing streak, but do you think they can turn it around, maybe sneak into first four?
I kind of lost hope there at Ohio State once I saw them lose to Minnesota. Um, I don't know. I'm kind of hoping for Ohio State's downfall. I'm not gonna lie because they got a transfer in there, Sean McNeil from West Virginia, who left us, and
He left you out.
I'll be happy, if
Lord.
Ohio State doesn't make the tournament.
What's the guy's name again?
Sean McNeil.
Oh man, he left you guys out in the cold. Good Lord, man, that's not cool. Don't be letting anybody out in the cold.
Can't be worse than when we lost Oscar.
Oh man.
Yeah. Were you happy to see them lose to St. Mary's? Did that make it sweeter?
Yeah, you take a little bit of joy in it. WVU wasn't in the tournament last year, so it, a little bit of a. I mean, I like to see upsets in general, and Oscar's a really good guy. He was a good guy when he was here, and everything. So I don't, dislike him or anything, but I just like to see upsets in general. Just that everyone does.
Of course.
There you go. It's cool for everybody. Everybody gets to see it.
Yeah, everybody loves an underdog.
Oh, yeah.
St. Peter's was about as big as an underdog as you could get.
Yeah.
But if St. Mary's was to make the Elite Eight this year, I don't know if they could. I mean, probably not. But if they did, it'd be the first time since 1959 that they made it to the Elite. It'll be their second overall trip in school history.
I mean, given the matchups, I'm a big fan of St. Mary's. I've said I think they're the best mid-major in college basketball, and I think they're definitely beating Gonzaga at least once this year, and I just really like St. Mary's. I mean, they went on the road at Houston, almost beat them. And they're getting on a little bit of a win streak right now. So yeah.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of the Gales.
Mm-hmm. Do you think that
Yeah.
Indiana with Trace Jackson Davis can go on a run in the tournament?
Yeah, I could see it. I could see it. I don't think they go Final Four run, but I could see them getting 2 or 3 wins maybe. Um, they get Xavier Johnson back. That's going to be a big help. He's a super good two-way player there for them. But yeah, they had a really good week. They went and beat an Illinois team on the road, and then they beat Michigan State. Those are 2 really good wins. So I could see it. I'm gonna have to see a little bit more consistency from them and see, once they get Xavier Johnson back, how they're doing. But the Big Ten is such a weird league. Like Iowa last year, they went on a big, they started to be consistent. They had a superstar in Keegan Murray, won the Big Ten tournament, and then lose first round to Richmond. So the Big Ten is so weird. It's really hard to tell, but I could see them get an upset first round, and I could see them in the Elite Eight. It's weird.
So when Mike Bray said that he was retiring or resigning at the end of the season, what was your reaction to that when it happened in real time? And who are your coaching candidates to replace Mike Bray at Notre Dame?
Yeah, I mean that was kind of a surprise, right? Because you know, they won a tournament game last year, didn't they?
Mm-hmm. They
Right?
won
Like,
2. They won first 4 records and then first round Bama.
right, okay. So yeah, that was a big shock. And then he brought in a 5-star recruit this year
Mm-hmm.
too. So
JJ Starling. Yeah.
yeah, so that was very surprising. And without him right now, it's just not looking good. Some coaching candidates to replace him. See, that's hard because you got to think about a good candidate that would take that job. It's different from talking about like the Texas job because you think some really good candidates would maybe leave their job to go to Texas because you can recruit there really well. But I don't know. I don't think any of those guys that I mentioned there would leave for Notre Dame. So it's hard to say right now, but I, they might look into some assistants at some of the top schools around the area and stuff. But I'd have to look into that a little bit more for sure.
Do you think
So
that John Beeline would be a good fit? Been heard he's thinking about coming out of retirement for the job.
I mean, wow. I mean, yeah, if you can get him.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, former coach at West Virginia, and then he went to Michigan. I like Beeline. I think he's a good coach. I think if Notre Dame can get him, I think it would be a really good hire, honestly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So, how long do you think Jim Boeheim is going to stay at Syracuse? Do you think this is going to be his last year? Do you think next year will be his last year? Year after next? How long do you really think he's going to stay at Syracuse? Because I mean, he's the last one standing out of the old Big East.
Yeah.
Let that sink in.
The last of the
he's
Mohicans.
Yeah, and he's the last of the Mohicans with the 4 Hall of Famers in Coach
Yeah.
K, Roy Williams, Rick Pitino, and Jim Boeheim. Jim Boeheim's the last one standing. So what's gonna happen with Boeheim? Do you think? How long does he stay?
I mean, he might just end up being one of those coaches that just wants to coach for the rest of his life, but you got to think, the next few years got to be it. Really, I don't see him going more than 2 or 3 more years. I just think.
So you think he's just gonna be like, Alex Trebek, working until he, eventually passes? You think that's gonna be like that with Boeheim?
I could see it happening. He might be that type of guy. Like he just wants to go until he can't.
I mean, this dude's been at Syracuse since the Kennedy era.
Yeah.
Well, when he was a player. Yeah, and he's been there since 1969 when everybody had the funny hairdos, funny sunglasses, and the funny mustaches. So that long.
That is crazy.
And he's been
Yeah.
head coach there since, Taxi Driver was in theaters in 1976.
That's just crazy to think about. Like, and I think I worry about Syracuse once he retires or he's done. Like, I I don't know if they're going to be able to bring in a guy in there that's going to be able to, have anywhere close to that type of success. Especially like recent years, Syracuse hasn't been all that great.
Right.
Yeah, I worry. I think Syracuse might be, as a program once he leaves. I don't know if they're going to be able to be that great.
Do you think Jerry McNamara is going to be the next head coach, so to speak? Because he's like the assistant coach over there. Do you think he's like the unofficial head coach in waiting?
Yeah, he could be next in line. Yeah, we saw that like kind of like with uh Duke with Coach K there, and
John Shire.
yeah, and Hubert Davis at North Carolina. They just kind of like pass it down to one of the assistants and kind of keep it in the staff, and I think that helps. Especially in now where everybody's transferring. They want to have a familiar face in there.
Yeah. So, what's your take on John Shire thus far at Duke?
Mhm. Well, I the big thing on him, not exactly like the win-loss record, but it's got to be developing those freshmen. Like you got the number what 2 or 1, depending on where you look, freshman in the country coming in, Derek Lively, and he just hasn't been great at all. So is that his fault, for not developing him that great? Because we've seen Coach K develop freshman year in and year out. Um, and not just him, but Derek Whitehead. They have a really good freshman class, and according to the rankings, probably the best. And yeah, that's the part I look at as maybe a weakness is developing that talent.
So, and you talked about Hubert Davis just now, but his first year, he's the national title runner up out of the blue. Basically puts a black mark on Coach K's final game as Duke's head coach, right?
Yeah.
And now in his second year, they go from number one in the nation to just being unranked. Is it way too early to grade the 2022-2023 season for North Carolina yet? I mean, just want to make sure I'm not throwing the baby out with the bathwater on this one.
Yeah. The thing about North Carolina is I think this year is going exactly like last year went, really, for North Carolina, and it's the same old story with it, and that part of me thinks they're gonna play a lot better once they get into March again, because this is exactly what happened last year, and the reason they were such a low seed was because last year the ACC wasn't looked upon as a very good conference, and I think right now it's kind of looking that way again. So I could see, North Carolina. I don't think they're going to be quite an 8 seed like they were last year. I think they'll probably end up getting around a 5 or a 6. And
Ooh, 5C's dangerous territory.
yeah, I yeah, that's the thing. Like anyone can get upset first round or potentially get a couple of wins, but I think North Carolina, the main struggle with them in the regular season, it seems like Caleb Love is just not efficient at all when he's shooting the ball. I think he's under 25% from the 3-point line, and this was a guy who was lighting it up in March Madness. And is he that type of guy that just kind of turns it up, once he gets to March Madness? He might be, you know. And also Brady Manick is a huge loss, of course, but yeah. I do think even if they are a lower seed, than they originally were, or projected to be, I think they are just a little bit too overhyped here heading into the season. And but as a lower seed, I could see them making a deep run still.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, do you think that Florida Atlantic is more for real than Charleston, or do you think that they probably won't make it out of the first 2 rounds?
I think Florida Atlantic might be more for real. I think they've played better competition. UAB is not an easy team. North Texas, they're pretty decent over there. So they've already beat the top their top two competitors in their league. So that's very impressive to me. I would say FAU is probably more dangerous in March.
Definitely keep an eye on Florida Atlantic in March Madness, that's for sure.
And do you think that the Mountain West will win a game in the tournament this year? Because everyone was like, "Ooh, the Mountain West teams are going to be dangerous," and then they just couldn't even get one win in the tournament. Do you think it'll be different this year? Do you think they're better?
They got to at least one, right? They're going to get 4 teams or so in the tournament. One of them's got to get a win at least. Really, the biggest surprise in the Mountain West has been Wyoming this year. Honestly, how bad they've been. I thought Wyoming was going to be a tournament team beginning of the season, and they're well below 500 on the record right now. But I think, between San Diego State, Boise State's probably going to make their second tournament in a row now. I think somebody's getting a win. New Mexico, yeah, one of them's getting a win this year, at least one. They might have to match 2 of them up as a 8 versus 9, and so one of them can get a win.
Yeah. Who do you think are going to be the bid stealers in the conference championship weekend? Which team do you think maybe only has 1 or 2 wins in their conference, but you think can spring it up, like Georgetown from a few years ago and Virginia Tech from last year?
Minnesota. I'm just kidding.
Mm.
No, but that would be crazy. I mean, we saw Georgetown do it a couple years ago. In that same year, we saw Oregon State do it. And this year, I could see it's hard to say Oklahoma State because the Big 12 is just too hard. So I don't see them winning all of those games in the tournament. But Oklahoma State is a good team. They just play in a really tough league. And so I could see them, or I guess Texas Tech is last place. So I could see Texas Tech going on a run. They just don't have very good guard play. But they're a good defensive team. I don't see them being able to do it. A lower bid, I don't see anyone in the SEC doing it. It's tough to really think about it because it always happens to be a surprise. But if I'd have to pick one, I'd probably look at a conference like maybe the Big East and look at teams like Seton Hall, who just defeated UConn, maybe making a run, or Creighton. I could see them potentially making a run. So I'd look at the Big East there for
Yeah.
sure.
I wonder if Loyola Chicago is going to have some of that Sister Jean luck in the Atlantic 10 this year. I mean, I know they're the last
Yeah.
place.
The A10, I think about anyone could win that conference tournament. So
I'm hoping that we can go on a run and then because I feel like if we win out or at least win every game besides St. Louis away, we can maybe get at large. I don't know. I feel like there's a chance of it, but just because we're playing so well right now, but you never know.
yeah.
But yeah,
I'm always scared come conference champ tournament time because we've only won it one. Even though we've won the most games in the A10 since we've joined, we only won the tournament once. So I was a little nervous about that.
But yeah, so the Big 12 has gotten 2 straight national champions in college basketball, right? Are they going to have a 3rd straight national champion this year?
If I were to have to pick between the Big 12 or the Field, I'd probably go the Field this year. I think Kansas, I think people are starting to figure them out a little bit. KJ Adams is really the key to that team. I think he's been a lot better than expected. So they're definitely going to go on a run. I think that they'll get beat though. I don't think they're going back to back. You know, it's hard to say. I think if someone from the Big 12 wins, I think it's going to be a team like TCU. Honestly, I think it's going to be a team like TCU. That TCU team is really well balanced, and I wouldn't be surprised if a team lower than a 1-2 seed wins it all this year, because it's been a really chaotic year. I could see a three or four seed winning the national championship this year, and that's around the line TCU will be. So, I, honestly, they're looking like the team that out of the Big 12, I could see putting it all together.
Well, we'll find out for sure. What about Kansas State? As of right now, they're leading the Big 12. So what's your take on K State, and what weaknesses do we need to look out for in Kansas State?
I really like Kansas State. They're really fun to watch. I think they're going to have a fun run in the tournament. I don't think they can win the championship because I think they do have, quite a bit of weaknesses. Like, they they play through. I know Marquise Noel, great facilitator and stuff, but usually, when it comes time, they play through Keontae Johnson in the high post, and he facilitates out the post, and I really like how they do that. But if they find the right team, that tries to take away Noel and Johnson, are they going to have enough? That's kind of the main thing there. Or even if they're one of them are just having an off night. We saw Marquise Noel had an off night against Kansas when they came to town, and what's his name stepped up off the bench. Can't even think of it right now, but they had a bench player score about 22. So
The guy from Florida, is that it?
it wasn't well. Keontae Johnson had a big game that game. I think it was a bench player, is a transfer from Arkansas, but he is a good player. I just don't know if they're gonna have enough. Whenever they get down to playing the top teams in the tournament late. But
Who is more likely to win a conference game, Georgetown or Louisville?
Well, what we got Georgetown versus DePaul coming up. That could be it right there. But I'd probably get Louisville, honestly, especially because DePaul is actually, they look a lot better than Georgetown, even though they're both pretty bad. So I'd probably go Louisville just because I think they'll have a lot more opportunities to defeat teams. But yeah, I think Georgetown's best opportunity actually might be against Butler rather than DePaul. The Butler just losing to everyone. They seem to be everybody's kind of get back game, and they just getting blown out to everyone.
But we got Jeffrey here to fire off some of his questions. What's up, Jeffrey?
I'm doing pretty good. How you doing, Danny?
I'm doing great.
Yeah, to your point about Georgetown, yeah, they're really struggling. I kind of would agree with you on Butler because of the fact DePaul, they actually like an improved team. It's really sad to see Georgetown as bad as they are because, I remember when they 10 years ago when they used to be really good still. So it's really frustrating to see that they're this bad right now.
I don't know how Pat Ewing still has a job. That's maybe topic to talk about. Why is he still there? But it's got to be just because he's just such a historical guy there. And
Well, it's the same thing as why Scott Frost stayed a little too long at Nebraska. So that's why it's how it's going.
I don't know if this question was already asked, but how much longer do you think Bob Huggins will coach the basketball team?
Well, that's interesting. I think he's here until he doesn't want to be. I don't think we're gonna fire him, but I guess the question is how long until he wants to retire,
Mhm.
and I give him a few more years still for sure. He still seems to be really into it, and um, yeah, I give him at least 2 to 3 more years. But how much longer after that, I guess we'll have to see. But um,
Mhm.
he's looking good. He's actually lost a lot of weight coming into this season, so that actually that that helps with health issues as you get older and stuff like that. So maybe that's added a couple years to his coaching career there.
Has West Virginia over or underperformed what you thought they were going to be at the beginning of the season so far?
Well, it is honestly it probably met my expectations about perfect because this is exactly what happens, about every year regarding it, other than like 2019 when we were actually really good there with Miles McBride. Uh, you know, we always have a good start in the non-conference games. We get to the Big 12, and we start to nosedive a little bit. But um, I don't. I'd actually say if we can pick up a couple more wins in our next few, I'd say that they've actually exceeded my expectations. And I know a lot of WVU fans aren't really happy, but I didn't expect us to make the NCAA tournament in the preseason because
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know what to expect. We have almost a brand new team here in Morgantown because a lot of guys transferred out, a lot of guys transferred in, and I wasn't quite sure what to expect. But I think given we still have an opportunity to make the tournament, I'd say they slightly exceeded because I didn't expect us to be in March.
I mean, you look at the way they're playing right now. If they were in the ACC or the Pac-12, they'd probably have a much better shot to make the turn. I know that logically doesn't really make sense because being in the Big 12, every game is against a good team, so you can lose more games and still make the tournament. But it's also a negative because every single team you're playing is not a gimme, and you can lose them all. Where I think West Virginia is good enough this year that if they were in the ACC, they could probably win 21, 22 games and they'd make the tournament. Whereas even though West Virginia could get in the tournament going 18-13, maybe 17-14 in a game or two in the Big 12 tournament, that's extremely difficult considering how tough the conference is because it is the best conference from top to bottom in the sport right now.
Right. Yeah, I think, really you could put all 10 teams from the Big 12 in the tournament, but at least 8 will make it. I think, you look at our past few games, since league play, we could easily be at least like 4-3 in conference play or something, just a few uh you know losing to Kansas State on the road in overtime. Look how good Kansas State turned out to be. Um, Losing on the road at Oklahoma State, that's the one that really hurts because we should have won that one for sure. WVU just can't win on the road, and it's tough in the Big 12 because every team has a really good atmosphere along with their really good team. So it's really hard to win on the road, but we got one coming up at Texas Tech. We got to win that one because Texas Tech, the only team in the Big 12 without a conference win now, uh, we got to win that one. That's about as well. We'll get them at home too, which will be easier, but that's about as easy as a road win as you can get in the Big 12. So um, we got to take that one, especially because we lost Oklahoma State on the road.
One last question for me in a row before I'm sure Will or Jackson will have more questions. How do you think Indiana's done this season? You think they've over underachieved? They've had a lot of injuries that have kind of derailed, their potential Big Ten championship hopes in the regular season or whatever. But I still think they're doing pretty well. How do you think they're doing?
Yeah, I think they had a really good week this week, with Illinois and Michigan State. So that kind of might get them on track. They get Xavier Johnson back. That's a huge piece. I talk about maybe one of the better two-way point guards, really. It's not just Chase Jackson Davis on this team. He's a big part. So I definitely could see them getting back on track. I think right now for the second best team in the Big Ten, just after Purdue, it's between Indiana, Michigan State, and probably Rutgers. So, but right now Indiana just got the win over Michigan State. They're looking like they're trying to run away with that second spot right there. So I'd say, they've probably underachieved slightly, but like you said, they had the injuries. There's still, plenty of season. So they can get back on track and meet those expectations for sure.
Do you think that Mark Adams is the real deal and that he can stay a while in Texas Tech? Or do you think it was all Chris Beard was the reason that team was good and that they're starting to get back down to earth and not one of the Big 12's better teams?
Well, yeah, Texas Tech is interesting because I think I mentioned earlier they just don't have any good guard play. They don't have a true point guard that can lead that team and get the ball movement going. And Fardaws Imac, their big transfer they got this offseason, he just started playing. So I could see them, turning things around a little bit. I think Mark Adams, he deserves at least another year or two for sure. They're not going to give up on him yet. The Big 12 is just a hard league, so I don't fault him too much for not winning a conference game yet. But he's got a big opportunity. I mean, like I said, WVU, that's about as easy as a road game as we're going to get rest of the season. With WVU coming to Lubbock, that's about as easy as a win Texas Tech is going to have rest of the year. So if they can't win that one, then that's going to, maybe raise some eyebrows. But it is interesting to think, was it Chris Beard? Because with the success he had last year, I still think Mark Adams might be a really good coach there for them. I just think a bad year this season.
You mentioned Patrick Ewing as a coach that you're surprised he's still at Georgetown. What are like some more coaches, doesn't matter how many, that you are still surprised are employed at their current stops?
Man, as a WVU fan, I hate Pitt, and I was surprised how long they've kept their guy up there. I couldn't believe that he still had a job this year, but they're actually playing pretty good this season. Better than what I thought they'd do. Of course, we beat them by 20 on the road. So, but yeah, I was surprised Capel still had a job, but he's actually doing pretty good now. So he's probably saved his butt for another year. Did Cal ever fire their head coach yet? How does he still have a job? Right? You got
I don't think they care about. I don't even think they care about their sports the way they play.
Yeah, I mean football, basketball. I mean, I don't know what's going on over there at Cal, honestly, but
yeah, Mark Fox still has a job for right now.
Yeah, the Stanford coach as well. I mean, he's been there a while and hasn't really won much. Jared Haas, so that's another one.
Yeah. Good name. I mean, really, the Pac-12, the bottom of the Big 12 is.
Maybe they should merge with the West Coast Conference in the Mountain West.
Yeah, I mean, I think the Mountain West is better than the Pac-12 right now. So, I mean, top to bottom wise, but yeah, I've heard rumors Gonzaga might join the Big 12. That would be you got because Houston's joining. That would just make the conference even better. I mean, it's already the best.
How funny would it be if Houston played a Big 12 opponent in the national championship, then they play each other to start off conference play, or they end next season against each other in conference play? How funny would that be?
Yeah, that could happen, honestly. Like, Houston has a really good team. It's going to be insane whenever we get those teams coming back in. to the Big
Oh.
12 because, yeah, you get Houston coming in, but then you also get to Big 12 teams some easier opponents coming in like Central Florida and Cincinnati and even BYU, which are all, pretty decent teams, but going up against Big 12 competition, those are going to be that's going to be about the easiest part of your schedule. If you if one of those Texas teams has a road trip to Cincinnati and UCF, that's about the easiest part of their schedule, conference play.
It's funny though. Houston, Cincinnati's they're gonna play each other Saturday on CBS at 1:15 p.m. and we're all gonna be thinking to ourselves, "Oh, is that a Big 12 game? Oh, wait, it's not a Big 12 game yet."
Right. It'll be weird to see how long Texas and Oklahoma are going to stay in the Big 12. Also,
Honestly, I'm thinking 2023 is their last year.
yeah,
I mean, I know right now 2024 is going to be their last year, but they're going to find a way to pay a buyout to get out of the Big 12 early. And the Big 12 wants to move on from Texas, Oklahoma,
yeah,
obviously. Not so much Oklahoma, but more of Texas, really.
yeah, and it's looking like the Big 12 is really starting to look like a basketball conference. Like the two big football brands are leaving, bringing in some basketball schools.
Yeah, I was surprised they didn't have Memphis.
Yeah, Memphis would be a good pickup. I mean, there's a lot of teams you could add. Uh, there is another AAC team I thought we might pick up. Can't think of it right now, but
SMU, Tulane.
yeah, maybe SMU. I mean, yeah, you could add a lot of those teams. You could even add some Mountain West teams. I mean, you got BYU joining, so you could add a Boise State who could bring football and basketball. It wouldn't be a bad pickup, but it's looking like the way they're going more towards the big TV market cities rather than teams like Boise, Idaho, right? They're going Houston, they're going Cincinnati. BYU, yeah, it's in Utah there, but they're going to have, after Texas and Oklahoma leave, the biggest football stadium in the conference. So, and Provo's always got a good atmosphere.
It'd be cool if the Big 12 got Utah to join. Because that way you have BYU, Utah playing each other. That's going to be your biggest rivalry in the Big 12. Because you don't have Texas, Oklahoma playing each other in the Big 12 anymore. You get like BYU, Utah playing each other every year, rivalry. Bam, lots and lots and lots of money.
Yep, because you're losing not only Red River rivalry but also Bedlam, and those are maybe the two biggest rivalries right there. So that's tough to lose. I honestly I don't even know what the biggest rivalry is going to end up being now, but
Kansas State.
This, what do they call that? The Sunflower
Mhm.
Showdown.
TCU Baylor. That's going to be a big one. Texas Tech, Oklahoma State, a rivalry, Jim. I take that as a no.
And maybe West Virginia and Cincinnati can start something up. The Bob Huggins Bowl.
Cincinnati, West Virginia. That's a good one.
Yeah.
I mean, they both have Bob Huggins, and they're not exactly rivals. They're just kind of
Can start one. Start a new rivalry.
Yeah. That'd be pretty fun to watch.
I'm sure when the basketball team travels to Cincinnati, the Cincinnati fans will have a heyday with Bob. I mean,
I think to your point, Jackson, you just said about Utah. With BYU, they're already a non-conference game, so I don't think it's like necessary that they have to be a conference game in the Big 12. It'd be cool, but I don't think the Pac-12 will give them up anyway. But they're already a non-conference because BYU's independent, Utah's Pac-12, so it's kind of like Iowa State. I don't really think it matters too much as long as they keep playing the game.
Yeah, Well, I mean, they should both play each other every year, no
Mhm.
exceptions. That's just how it should be.
Yeah. I'm happy the backyard brawl is back.
There you go, backyard brawl. And let's bring back that Maryland rivalry and that Virginia Tech rivalry for you
And the
guys.
Black Diamond Trophy. I mean,
Yeah.
that game was played this past year, and it's not going to be played for a while.
I guess we're keeping it for a while.
There you go.
The positives.
You beat them 2 years in a row. How's that feel?
I mean, you know, after 2 losing seasons, I guess it's something to take away from it. So,
Well, I guess that's our last bit for the show. But for those who want to talk about, because you're basically the YouTube Joe Lenardi, so to speak. So anybody that wants to talk to you about, college basketball or West Virginia or Marshall, where can they find you?
they can find
Danny?
me on YouTube right here. My name, Dannyology. Always posting daily college basketball content. I do streams 2 or 3 times a week. As we get closer to March, I'm going to be streaming during March Madness, we're going to be streaming about every day. So it's going to be a real fun ride. You can follow me on Twitter at 6mandanny, and very active on Twitter, tweeting out updates, stuff like that. So definitely join the community if you're a college basketball fan.
Yeah, if you want to get the best college basketball news and the best college basketball rankings, go to this guy. Okay, I'm pointing wrong way. Go to this guy, Dannyology. He's one of the best in the business.
One
I
more
appreciate
question
it,
for you,
guys.
Danny. What do you think about Marshall football? Do you think they're going in the right direction?
Masha.
Yeah, I mean, I'm happy. I like that we're in the Sun Belt. It's more, it helps the football team more than the basketball team joining the Sun Belt. For sure, more competition in there with like App State, Coastal Carolina. So those are some good games there, and I think they competed well first year in the Sun Belt. I really like the head coach they got there. I was actually, with their start this year, they beat Notre Dame. It was looking like they were going to have a really good season. They still had a decent year. We won a bowl game, but yeah, I really like their head coach. There's actually, I actually wanted WVU to hire their head coach because I thought this was Neil Brown's last year. So, but yeah, I think it's heading in the right direction. We joined a a better football conference. I really like the head coach down there. So,
Neil Brown's in big trouble for sure.
yep, this is make it or break it right here this year.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Well, everyone watching this awesome interview, check out Dannyology. I pointed wrong again. Check out Dannyology and his awesome college basketball content. Check him out on Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and check us out, the Young Guns. Like, comment, subscribe, and we'll see you later.
Thanks for coming.